everyone, this is Professor McKinney. Fun fact about me is that I love fish tanks, and this is actually a 75-gallon South American cichlid tank that I have in my home office. But yeah, we have a really great video coming up, so let's dive into it. Hey everyone, so in this week's video, we are going to be specifically focusing on our Chapter 8 topic in the textbook, which is all about performance management. So we do have another special guest with us again this week, and her name is Desiree, and Desiree and I worked together several years ago, and I've just been really fascinated with how professional she is and how she has a huge interest in data analytics in HR, which she's actually used to be able to work on performance management at large corporations. So with that being said, I will let Desiree introduce herself.
So my name is Desiree Famber, and I am the HRIS analyst at Barrett Outdoor Living. HRIS stands for Human Resources Information Systems. And my favorite thing about HR would be that it's constantly changing. Um, Within HR, there's just so many different departments and competencies and things you get to learn. And you could really do almost anything in HR if you have a nick for data or you're good with, numbers, you're good with people skills for employee engagement, you can do that. You're good at sales, recruiting may be good for you. So that's what I like about HR. It's just a very broad um, department where you can do different things.
Thanks, Desiree, for that quick introduction. I like how you talked about one of the things that interests you is the variety of work within HR, and how, whether you're good with numbers and analytics or you're good with people skills and kind of selling things, that there's always a place within HR for you with how it's always changing. So, with that, let's get to our first learning objective.
What are the three main benefits of performance management?
The three main benefits of performance management include aligning employee goals with organizational objectives, improving individual performance through regular feedback, and then also supporting employee development. A lot of times, by aligning goals, employees understand how their work it contributes to the company's overall success. So regular feedback it helps individuals continuously improve their performance while identifying strengths and different areas for growth to encourage ongoing development in their personal profession.
What is a balanced scorecard?
A balanced scorecard is a strategic tool used by organizations to measure performance across various areas, and there's typically four areas that you specifically look at. So those are financial, customer satisfaction, internal processes, and then learning and growth. So this approach it ensures that companies are tracking more than just financial results. So this is how they also monitor how well they are serving their customers or improving internal efficiency and encouraging employee learning. So one example would be like for someone that works at a university, right? A faculty teacher or one of your professors. So a balanced scorecard in that setting, it might look at student satisfaction, academic performance, administrative efficiency, and then the faculty development that they partake in themselves.
How does goal setting affect performance?
So I actually took a few notes because I really wanted to think more about the positives of performance and setting goals. So what I came up with is yes, it does have a positive impact on your performance. For one, motivation, setting your goals will help motivate employees, and having those goals can help increase persistence, right? When you have something to look forward to, you're motivated to work towards it, right? And so, with that being said, with motivation, you also have more focus. So, I have on my notes goals direct a person's attention and energy toward goal related factors. So, you're getting someone's attention and their energy to focus on that specific goal. So that will help drive, the performance that they do, at work. Also, too, with engagement, um, when someone's meeting their goals, they have a sense of, I accomplished this, right? And so you boost engagement and you encourage them to take on new challenges, right? So that's another positive impact on setting a goal. Collaboration, when goals are set, you have meaningful work where you're aligned and it's collaborative, right? Especially if you have goals that are in sync with someone else's goals, maybe. So it's a collaborative environment. And then lastly, I put connection. Setting goals um, helps you feel more connected to your organization and maybe the purpose of the organization as a whole. So having those goals kind of all intertwine with your purpose for that organization, you feel more inclined to meet those goals.
What are the possible sources of performance information?
Possible sources of performance information and where it comes from. Typically, that includes supervisors, peers, subordinates if someone's in a managerial role, self assessments, and also responses and feedback from customers. So each source, what it does is it offers a unique perspective. So, for example, supervisors may evaluate an employee's overall performance and goal achievement, while peers, they might provide insights into teamwork and collaboration. Where subordinates could offer feedback on leadership, and then a lot of times, like the customers, they can assess the quality of the service that they received from their end.
What is the difference between performance management and performance ranking methods?
So, when we're looking at the difference between performance management and performance ranking methods, there's a couple different ways to think about it. So, performance management is a continuous process that involves setting goals, giving regular feedback, and then also evaluating performance to help employees grow and improve. It's kind of like if your manager was consistently giving you feedback throughout your time working somewhere to kind of help, guide your learning and make you, a better worker and more efficient. On the other hand, performance ranking methods, it's where you actually compare employees against each other. So you're typically ranking them from like the best to the worst employee. And a lot of times you see this method used when companies making decisions about raises or even promotions.
Why is feedback important to goal accomplishment?
So feedback is really important in goal setting because you want to know where you can improve, you know, areas where you can do better, maybe areas you should kind of go back a little bit. So I have in my notes that for feedback, you're able to adjust your goals. So maybe you need to take a look back and realign. Maybe you're working towards something else that's kind of going another direction. You need to just reel it back in. Um, Feedback is also good for evaluating your progress, right? Let's see, what you've done and the milestones you've hit so we can see if we're aligning, right? And evaluating that progress. Also, being able to identify new goals, right? So you go into your performance review or your one on one with your manager, and you're like, hey, I've accomplished this. I'm getting really good at this. I'm feeling like I'm ready to take on this project, right? The feedback is good so you can identify those new goals, right? And then I also have in here for the feedback, it also does increase your motivation because you're like, okay, my manager is invested. They want to know. You're motivated and you want to share, right? Don't we all feel great when people want to know how we feel about what we're doing? So you're more inclined to share that information.
What are the steps in the progressive discipline process?
So, the progressive discipline process, what it is that it actually involves a series of like escalating steps to address employee misconduct or poor performance. So, what happens is that it usually starts with like a verbal warning, directly from a manager. And then if things aren't improved on, it's typically followed up by a written warning. If the behavior still doesn't improve, it could lead to a final written warning or possibly even a suspension from work. And then finally, termination for the employee if the issue persists. So I have actually personally used this process many times, and I believe that it is, really a benefit to both the employee and the employer. So when I say that, a lot of people think that it's kind of against the employee. But what it does is it actually helps the employee because not every manager is the best at having difficult conversations. And I believe that if someone is having issues, that they need to have full, transparent understanding of what's not working. So what this does is that it helps provide like a very clear feedback to the employee on what they need to do to get better. But it's also a benefit to the organization because, if they do have to terminate that employee, and with that, then there's kind of like a documented process of all the steps that the organization has taken and different opportunities that the employee's been given to actually improve before they were ultimately terminated. So, this can oftentimes also help an employer's case if a disgruntled, terminated employee tries to take them to court.
What are 3 common obstacles to effectively manage performance?
So, one of the three issues or obstacles you face within administering performance management is communication. So, not being able to effectively communicate a performance plan will leave an employee confused, stressed. You'll build some sort of resentment because all these feelings are building up, and you're like, I have no idea what's going on. And also, too, some missed deadlines. So, if you don't have the communication and there's some holes in your process for how you're planning to manage performance, you're basically leaving an employee on an island alone. So you want to be able to facilitate information effectively. Let them know about, you know, expectations on the front end, right? Let them know about, what the process is going to look like going forward, and let them know if, be open to the questions and feedback, right? So that's one of the obstacles. Another of one of the obstacles is lack of accountability. So that can lead to poor performance in the workplace. So when you're administering a performance plan or performance review, you want to foster accountability amongst the team, right? You don't want to be like, okay, you didn't do good on that. It's fine. You get a, slap on the hand, you're okay. You want to be able to be like, hey, you're producing low quality work, you're missing deadlines, poor team performance. So that's an obstacle that is pretty common within performance management, is not having the accountability when someone's not doing so well. And with saying that, that actually leads into the third obstacle, which is bias, human biases. So when you have lack of accountability, a lot of it too can feed from those biases. So you're making an error in judgment, right? You're having a prejudgment of someone and you're already like, they're not going to do good with that, right? So that really can negatively impact a performance review. So I wrote down a few different biases that pertain to performance management, what can happen. So there's one on here actually called recency bias. So this is when you tend to focus on a most recent time period and you bring that up in a performance review. So you're like, what have you done lately? Or you messed up just here recently. And you kind of just forget about all the work they've done maybe for the past 3 years. But you're having a recency bias. You're like, you're messing up right now. We don't know what this person is going through. We don't know the factors, right? So that's something that could skew a performance review, right? You're judging based on the work they've done in the last 2 weeks. May have not been their best, right? Another one is, I think it's primacy bias, primacy bias. So basically, you are looking at information that they've done basically kind of early on when you met them. Oh, when I first met this person, they just weren't, they're rude. They're just not a good person, right? Well, then you have your performance review, maybe 6 months, and you're still basing everything you know about this person off your first encounter with them and not on the work they've done within 6 months. That can skew off a performance review, and you're like, hey, I've been working here for 6 months. I came in maybe kind of sour, which is not okay. Maybe the personalities didn't match up, but you're judging them off of something you met on your first encounter. And a last one that I found that was kind of common is leniency bias. So the leniency bias is when managers give favorable ratings, even though they have employees with room for improvement, right? So you can sometimes have a manager who's like, I really like this person. Like, we're so much alike. We like the same things. Our personalities are just perfect, but the work is just like low quality work, right? So you're having a leniency bias. You're just like, I'm going to give it to you, right? I'm going to let you go ahead and get 5 stars, right? Well, that's not okay. So that's where lack of accountability kind of comes into with having leniency bias. So those are some obstacles you can have when administering performance reviews.
Hey everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this video where we've talked about the key learning objectives for Chapter 8 in the textbook, which is all about performance management. So once again, just note this is not a, watch this video in replacing reading the text. Make sure that you are actually still reading the textbook each week, because that does help out with your weekly questions and really being able to fully understand all of the different concepts that we're talking about. So with that being said, if you have any questions or concerns about this class or the semester, feel free to reach out. We're kind of at our halfway point. So, if you need anything, I'm an email away or a text away, and you have my information. So that's all we're going to talk about tonight, and I will talk to you in the next video.